Who is Emio? Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today we are talking about these new teasers coming out of Nintendo for what seems to be a new first-party Nintendo horror game. Not a sentence I expected to say this morning, but here we are. So, at 6 a.m. this morning, Nintendo put out a cryptic teaser for a new horror game, and based on everything surrounding this, it does seem like either, at the very least, Nintendo is publishing this, or maybe, bare minimum, it's going to be a Switch exclusive. So, for those out of the loop, they put out a 15-second teaser of this man standing in a dark room with a bag over his head with like the very stereotypical tropey kind of scary face on the bag, and that's it. It's just a teaser that says, "Who is Emio?" And that's all the information we have right now. But it's very interesting. It seems like Nintendo is very heavily involved with this because they posted it on all of their social medias at the exact same time. They posted it on YouTube channels at the same time. There's a Japanese website on Nintendo.com. So Nintendo's definitely involved with this in some way, shape, or form. I would make the assumption that this is Nintendo published, but it could just be exclusive, timed exclusive, something like that. Usually when a Nintendo tweet comes out at 6 a.m. and it's coordinated between America, Europe, Japan, usually that's reserved for like a first party announcement of like maybe a Splatoon update or some sort of DLC or like a direct announcement. 6 a.m. Pacific time is when we get our first party Nintendo tweets of the day, and this time it was this Emio tease, which is just crazy. This is the first time that Nintendo will have published a horror game since Fatal Frame on Wii U in 2015, and if it's a new IP, this will be the first new horror IP from Nintendo since Eternal Darkness way back on the GameCube. So it's cool to see Nintendo tackling a genre that they very rarely tackle. It's a genre they have not published at all on the Nintendo Switch. We did get a couple Fatal Frame games ported to Nintendo Switch, but it wasn't by Nintendo. Like, they weren't involved with those remakes or ports. So to see this happening is just very curious in a year that I felt like was already pretty good. I was saying, like, it'd be cool if we get another, one more game, maybe, like a GameCube Shadow Drop during the September Direct or something. Just one more game to fill out the schedule. But now it looks like we might have that game. It might be this horror game, because if they're teasing it now, I imagine this will be releasing probably in October. That would make the most sense. Nintendo, if they're publishing it, right, they normally have a very quick announcement to release cycle. So if it's being teased now, I could see this thing releasing in just a few months. But the big question here is, what is this? Who is Emio? Who is making this game? So after doing some digging, Emio is a camera brand in Japan, and for those out of the loop, Fatal Frame uses cameras in its gameplay very much. Like, that is the core gimmick of Fatal Frame. You're taking pictures of ghosts. So the likeliest assumption you can make here, I think, is that it's a new Fatal Frame game. The last Fatal Frame game that released, like the last new one, was Made in a Blackwater on Wii U, and then they've ported that and Mask of the Lunar Eclipse to the Switch in recent years. So it's been a long time since the last new Fatal Frame. Nintendo has a history of publishing Fatal Frame games. It could be a Fatal Frame game. I think that is the safest assumption, which is very exciting. It's been a long time since we got a new Fatal Frame game. I cannot say I've played any of those games, but if Nintendo is publishing this, I will definitely be making an attempt to dive into the series to just kind of, well-verse myself when it comes to another kind of series that's heavily associated with Nintendo. So that's the first possibility. I think it's also possible, though, that maybe this is from the Fatal Frame devs, but not actually Fatal Frame, since Nintendo is publishing it. They recently, like I said, brought those other Nintendo exclusive Fatal Frame games to PS4 and I believe Xbox and PC and stuff. It'd be kind of weird for them to go back to having an exclusive Fatal Frame. So maybe it's not Fatal Frame. Maybe it's a new IP from Koei Tecmo, from the team that makes Fatal Frame. Maybe it's a new IP from them for Nintendo Switch this year. I could see that as well. But since Nintendo has a history of working with that team, I think they are the most likely candidate for being behind this Who is Emio game, this Emio teaser, and we'll likely see it this year. But we do have another possibility, and that is coming from this Twitter account, PL_evil, who back in April reported something which seems to have gone completely under the radar. Their tweet had like 4 likes when I found this, but seemingly they were leaking some information about Bloober Team, which is a developer very well known for developing horror games. They did The Medium, they're doing Silent Hill 2 with Konami, they did that Blair Witch game. So Bloober Team has a long history of doing a lot of horror games, maybe not to the most critical, success, right? These games don't review that well. Bloober Team is a pretty divisive figure in the gaming industry, but there's this tweet from this account, PL_evil, that says, "We have been working together with Draw Distance, which is our subsidiary, on the M project for quite some time, and this is a game that will come exclusively to Nintendo platforms." But it actually does go deeper than that, because the CEO of Bloober Team actually referenced a new game they're making for Nintendo platforms at the very least. They didn't say if they're actually making it exclusively for Switch necessarily, but you can kind of read between the lines here and kind of assume that they are likely working on something with Nintendo that could be completely separate to this, because here they say, quote, "The decision to terminate the cooperation with Draw Distance had nothing to do with the termination of the contract by Take-Two. Both pieces of information appeared at a similar time, but were completely independent of each other. Project M, although its budget is significantly smaller than the games we are working on at Bloober Team, is extremely important due to our long-term plans. In addition, we are working on it in cooperation with the world's best game creators for Nintendo platforms, so we cannot afford to create just a decent game," said the Bloober Team CEO. So this Twitter account pops up in April, talks about this Project M game that Draw Distance is working on with Bloober Team. Then we get this actual interview where the Bloober Team CEO references Project M and how they're working with Nintendo to make it for Nintendo platforms. Very interesting stuff. However, since this is explicitly about them terminating cooperation with this other studio, Draw Distance, that makes me think this game is far off. So this is probably a Switch 2 game. It's still very interesting that this came out today. Like, this is still really big news that Bloober Team is likely working on some sort of new IP with Nintendo, but I don't think it's this. Because if they just terminated cooperation and they stopped working with this Draw Distance developer, that means this game is nowhere near releasing. At least that's how I view it. And I don't think Nintendo would be doing this cryptic tease for a horror game that's probably years away. So, very interesting in of itself. A totally separate thing has been dug up because of this Who is Emio teaser. But there it is. Bloober Team is making a game for Nintendo. That's a pretty big deal. But I don't want to rule anything out. It could be Bloober Team making this game, Who is Emio game. It could be the Fatal Frame team. It could be another team entirely making something here. I mean, how exciting would it be if it turns out this is like an internally developed EPD game? It's getting a pretty big push from all of their social media accounts. It's getting this weird cryptic ARG teaser campaign, which Nintendo never does. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Even if you aren't interested in horror games, it's just kind of cool to see Nintendo doing this, and I'm curious to see when we will hear more. I don't think we're going to go too long without any more updates on this. The internet is a very cutthroat environment. People aren't going to be talking about this Who is Emio trailer or teaser for more than just a day or two, so I'd imagine maybe even this week we see something more from this game, and like I said earlier in the video, I do think this is going to be a game that releases this year. I don't think it makes sense for Nintendo to be publishing a horror game and not release it very soon. I mean, maybe early next year, but if they can get out for October around Halloween, that's the perfect time frame. The only game we have in October right now is Super Mario Party Jamboree, and I actually said in my video about the Direct talking about, like, I think there will be at least one more game this year. I totally believe that, and it seems like that's coming true. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Very strange stuff, very peculiar stuff. I didn't expect to wake up this morning and see Nintendo doing some weird teasers for a horror game, but here we are. Very, very exciting. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all of that stuff. I will be doing videos on the Emio teasers as they come out because I am very, very intrigued by all of this. So let me know your thoughts, and until next time, folks, peace.